morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 23. Jivan chavo bhagavatam gridenum na jatu martyo bilabeta yastu Sri Vishnu padya manujastu lasya spasan chavoyas tu naveda gandam Jivan chavo bhagavatam gridenum na jatu martyo bilabeta yastu Sri Vishnu padya manujastu lasya spasan chavoyastu naveda gandam Jivan, while living, Sava, a dead body, Bhagavata Angri Renum, the dust of the feet of a pure devotee. Na, never. Jatu, at any time. Marcha, mortal. Abila Beta, particularly received. Ya, a person. Two, but. Three, with opulence. Vishnu Padya, of the lotus feet of Vishnu. Manuja, a descendant of Manu. Tulasya, leaves of the Tulsi tree. Spasan, while breathing. Sava, still a dead body. Ya, who? To, but. Naveda, never experienced. Gandham, the aroma. Translation. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the breathing dead body is a ghost. When a man dies, he is called dead. But when he again appears in a subtle form not visible to our present vision and yet acts, such a dead body is called a ghost. Ghosts are always very bad elements, always creating a fearful situation for others. Similarly, the ghost-like non-devotees who have no respect for the pure devotees, nor for the Vishnu deity in the temples, create a fearful situation for the devotees at all times. The Lord never accepts any offering by such impure ghosts. There is a common saying that one should first love the dog of the beloved before one shows any loving sentiments for the beloved. The stage of pure devotion is attained by sincerely serving a pure devotee of the Lord. The first condition of devotional service to the Lord is therefore to be a servant of a pure devotee. And this condition is fulfilled by the statement, reception of the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who has also served another pure devotee. That is the way of pure disciplic succession or devotional parampara. Maharaj Rahugana inquired from the great saint Jadabharata as to how he had attained such a liberated stage of a Paramahamsa, and in answer the great saint replied as follows, Bhagavatam 5:12, Rahuganai tat tapasa nayati nachedjaya naiva panat grihadva nachandasa naiva jalagni surye vina mahatpara rajobhishekam. O King Rahugana, the perfectional stage of devotional service, or the Paramahamsa stage of life, cannot be attained unless one is blessed by the dust of the feet of great devotees. It is never attained by tapasya, austerity, the Vedic worshipping process, acceptance of the renounced order of life, the discharge of the duties of household life, the chanting of the Vedic hymns, or the performance of penances in the hot sun, within cold water, or before the blazing fire. In other words, Lord Sri Krishna is the property of his pure, unconditional devotees, and as such, only the devotees can deliver Krishna to another devotee. Krishna is never obtainable directly. Lord Chaitanya therefore designated himself as Gopi Bhatta Pada Kamalaya Dasa Dasa Anudasa, or the most obedient servant of the servants of the Lord, who maintains the Gopi damsels at Vrindavan. Pure devotee therefore never approaches the Lord directly, but tries to please the servant of the Lord's servants, and thus the Lord becomes pleased, and only then can the devotee relish the taste of the tulsi leaves stuck to his lotus feet. In the Brahma Samhita it is said that the Lord is never to be found by becoming a great scholar of the Vedic literatures, but he is very easily approachable through his pure devotee. In Vrindavan, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srimati Radharani is a tender-hearted feminine counterpart of the Supreme Whole, resembling the perfectional stage of the worldly feminine nature. Therefore, the mercy of Radharani is available very readily to the sincere devotees, and once she recommends such a devotee to Lord Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. The conclusion is, therefore, that one should be more serious about seeking the mercy of the devotee than the Lord directly, and by one's doing so by the goodwill of the devotee, the natural attraction for the service of the Lord will be revived. So continuing in this particular section, chapter entitled Pure Devotional Service, and here Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning that although one may have all sorts of qualities, unless one actually comes to the position of serving a great devotee, then this greatness accounts really for nothing, ultimately speaking. Prabhupada used to tell us that, there are so many zeros in the material world, but when you add Krishna, that's the one that gives everything meaning. So you can have 0, 0, zeros. You can have unlimited zeros, but what is the worth of the unlimited zero? Oh, I've got unlimited zeros. Well, I'm going to add another zero. Yeah. I've got 100 zeros. Well, I'm going to add another 100. Yeah. Well, it's still zero. But if you put a 1 in the front, then that has significance. And that Prabhupada always told us, that 1 is Krishna. When you put Krishna there, then everything else becomes so meaningful and so wonderful. Here, it's mentioned here by Prabhupada at the end of his purport about the tulsi leaves that are offered to the Lord by his pure devotees, and the taste of the tulsi leaves, the fragrance mixed with the fragrance. And now, there's a description in many places of the fragrance. The Lord Krishna has many wonderful qualities, and the fragrance of Krishna is described by the Goswamis and the different acharyas as being a whole shop full of fragrances that are always being, and that shop is being always unlimitedly filled up with newer and newer fragrances. So the bodily fragrance of Krishna actually causes Srimati Radharani and the gopis to go mad. Just the scent of his body. Of course, generally the scent of our bodies or something else. Especially if we haven't taken a bath for a little while. But the material body, that's one thing. But and then people of course purchase a very fragrant scents, and quite often they're very expensive. I don't know what they are now, but there's whole huge industries built up on selling fragrances, and you can spend hundreds and if not thousands on scents, and you just put a little dab on, and those scents are very wonderful and can be, one can, take in that fragrance from, a long distance. But the fragrance of Krishna, now sometimes can described as the fragrance of lotuses, sometimes the musk mixed with lotus, sometimes jasmine, sometimes and always changing, and that fragrance goes for a long way around. The Radharani, the gopis can tell when Krishna is coming just by his fragrance. So when you have the tulsi leaves offered to the Lord, mixed with the Lord's fragrance and the tulsi's fragrance and taste, then that is a very wonderful experience, especially for those who are very elevated. They experience that to their heart's content, and the Lord gives his mercy in so many different ways, just through his fragrance, just by tasting the tulsi that is offered to him. So here it is said that in this verse that one who has not never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is a dead body, although breathing. Now here the description is given of the dead body breathing. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the breathing dead body is a ghost. We know there's so many different types of ghosts: pretas and bhutas and pisichas and kecharas, kushmandis, and so on, dakinis. Kecharas are witches that fly, spirits, and so on. There's so many different types of ghosts. They don't, generally the living entity, when he performs too many sinful activities, he's not entitled to have a gross material body. He is, the reaction is he must get a spirit, a ghostly body. And because someone's abused the body, committed suicide, for taking his own life, as one sinful activity is considered that one might get the ghost body. But just in general, it is said that a lot of sinful activities and abuse of the body and abuse of others' bodies, the reaction is that one gets the body of a ghost. He's abusing his own body, abusing others' bodies, and very sinful activities. Quite often you become a ghost. And you can become a ghost for a long time. So, and the ghost, and Prabhupada goes on to say here that there's a subtle form. We can't generally see the ghost, yet the ghost acts. It's a dead body. Ghosts are generally very bad elements. Although there's some descriptions of bhutas and so on, where some of them are more benign, but in general the principle is they're bad elements, and they're always focused on trying to fulfill their desires, even though they've got a subtle ghostly form, but they're trying to enjoy. They're so focused on that they just become frustrated, and they become angry, and they cause disturbance, and quite often they enjoy causing disturbance. I remember there's some stories of Srila Prabhupada. He describes that because of that famous one when he was staying in John Lennon's estate at Tinderhurst there was the ghost or something like that, and Prabhupada said they'd do the chanting. There was another story of Prabhupada described when he was in Lucknow. He got a house real cheap. It was a very big house, and he was doing business, and he got a house really cheap because that house was known to be possessed. There were bhutas there, and so no one wanted it. And everyone knew, there was all these strange occurrences going on and so on. And so no one wanted it. The Prabhupada said, yes, I was able to rent a nice house in Lucknow really cheap. Because no one wanted it. And so but then when I went there, and he describes actually, he said, yes, I knew there was Buddhas going in the different rooms. They were, actually that Buddha, he was living nearby the gate. I remember this. He was living nearby the gate. So we had big kirtan, everything like that, and that Buddha couldn't stay there, he left. So same at John Leonard's, they had the big kirtan like that. So generally you have big kirtan, blow conches, and if you can go to the whole yajna, there's a whole procedure, you chant mantras, but the kirtan, blow conch, sprinkle water like that. And the Buddhas, they try to come there, but it's too pure for them. They like other atmospheres. Of course, some Buddhas are a bit more developed. There's another type of Buddha there, kind of Brahmana Buddhas, who, that story of who was a Ramanuja was appearance the other day, that where the king's daughter was possessed by a Buddha, and she was acting all crazy and speaking in strange voices and so on. It was the Buddha who possessed her. So he asked at that time Ramanuja's guru Yadaprakash to come there and do some yajna or something. But the ghost just laughed at him. You think by doing these yajnas you can get rid of me so easily from this girl's body? I just laughed. But then he said that, but if I get the mercy of this Ramanuja, then I will leave this girl alone. I think the story goes something like that, isn't it? So then, that he was a Brahma Buddha, and previously he was a Brahmana, acted sinfully, had to be a Buddha. So some Buddhas like that, they're actually quite knowledgeable. Some of them are like the Pisachas. The Pisachas are generally followers of Durga and Shiva, like that. They create their bad elements, as Prabhupada says here, and what does he say? Creating a fearful situation for others. They're so intent on trying to enjoy, they'll do anything to try to enjoy, and they take pleasure in causing disturbance. They like to cause disturbance. They actually enjoy the descriptions of one Buddha was, in one Purana, Garuda Purana, one Buddha was describing how he would like to wait, in a certain area, and then when the owners of the house came there, he would be like, boo! And he would like to see them jump. He was describing it like that. He was enjoying like that, he created all noises. So they like to create disturbance. And they're so focused. And they can't fulfill their desires in the gross way. So because out of frustration they become angry, they like to, out of frustration people just vent. They vent. And they vent and they vent and they like to cause disturbance. And here, the fearful situation for others. And similarly, the ghost-like non-devotee, no respect for the pure devotees, nor for the Vishnu deity in the temple. So okay, the ghosts are one thing, and then there's ghost-like people. They're walking and talking, they're living in the world, they're breathing and so many things like that. But are they actually living to the position of true living in the human form of life and taking up the spiritual path? This is why the analogy is given here. They're ghost-like. They're walking around, they're doing something, but they're like a flapping. Another description there, flapping in the breeze for a while the breeze is blowing. The leaf flaps around or something like that. So they're flapping around for a while, but actually they're like a dead body walking, and the dead body walking in frustration, total focus on their fulfilling their desires. They cause disturbances. And because of that, even to the point of giving trouble to the devotees, because they're so focused on what they're doing, their discrimination, their higher discrimination, their higher intelligence is afflicted by the mode of ignorance, and by their focusing on material, they lose that higher sense of discrimination and higher intelligence, and even to the point where devotees are doing good for society, engaging in spiritual activities where there are beautiful temples, they will go out of their way to give trouble. We've experienced that ourselves as devotees, and this has been going on since time immemorial. The ghost-like non-devotees want to create trouble. They really have no life, actually. Really have no, as far as spirituality, which is really, in the human form of life, is the purpose, the meaning of life. So they really have no life. But even they have no life. Either they know it or they're unaware of it, consciously or unconsciously, but they're just so absorbed in that and addicted to creating disturbance. This is a fearful situation. And the Lord never accepts anything from these impure type, ghost type personalities. But here it is said that the person who has not at any time received the dust of the lotus feet of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee, he is also this dead body flapping. And this is the secret of success in spiritual life, to please the pure devotee. Now there's a famous Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param. There's this famous verse when Lord Shiva was speaking to Durga, Parvati's wife. He said, Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, my dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to the Vaishnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu. So, Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param Tasmat Paratanam Devi Tariyanam Samachanam. Now, another very famous verse is this Yemi Bhakta Janapata Nami Bhaktas Chajedana. Those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees. This is Lord Krishna. He's saying. And this he's saying, there's a Sadhavo, Ridam Mayam, Sadhanam Ridam. There's many verses. And he was saying this to Devasa Muni. Devasa Muni, the story of Ambarish, when and Devasa Muni offended Ambarish Maharaj. When Ambarish was following the Ekadasi, and then Devasa went to take his bath, and he had to break the Ekadasi, so he just took a little water, but then Devasa Muni just became enraged with that, and created a fearful demon to kill Ambarish. So, and then of course the Lord didn't like that, and he sent his Sudarshan Chakra, who killed that demon, and then started to chase the bus. He went everywhere, to Brahma Loka, to Shiva Loka, then he went finally to Vishnu Loka, and then he surrendered and he begged for mercy. He begged Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu was talking to him, very nice conversation, and he mentioned like that, Sadhavodriyam Sadhanam. The devotees are in the core of my heart. They're in the core of my heart. And I'm in the core of their heart. They don't know anyone else but me, and I don't know anyone else but them. So many famous verses. Now, in regard to this, about those who think they can be the direct devotees, Lord Shiva says no. Higher than being a direct devotee is being a devotee of my devotee. Lord Chaitanya, Gopi, Bhatta Kamala Dasa Dasa Anand, he says the same thing, Prabhupada quotes here. And in this story, in this section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where that's quoted, there's a mention of how King Prataparudra wanted to have a darshan and an audience with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Lord Chaitanya, seeing him as the king, didn't want to associate with worldly-minded people. Of course, this was a little bit of a test by Lord Chaitanya to King Prataparudra. And so refused to give him an audience. Now, King Prataparudra asked many different devotees. He asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya if he could, on his behalf, speak to Lord Chaitanya. which he did. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke to Lord Chaitanya. Again, Lord Chaitanya refused. Again, he refused. No, he is the king. I cannot associate. Then he spoke to Ramananda Roy. Now, Ramananda Roy, he went there and he spoke to Lord Chaitanya. And he said that, you remember when you came to see me, and of course Ramananda Roy was working in the government service. King Pratapurudra's kingdom stretched all the way down to Chennai, down to Madras. And so he was in the government service, and Lord Chaitanya instructed him, you should retire from the government service and you should come to Jagannath Puri and live with me there in Jagannath Puri. So Ramananda Roy asked King Prataparudra if he could do that. But King Prataparudra at that point was already very attracted to Lord Chaitanya. He said, yes, very good idea. You can retire completely, and not only that, you can retire on a full pension. On a full pension. And so Ramananda Roy did that, and he came there. So Ramananda Roy was presenting in this way. King Prataparudra is actually your devotee, and not only that, when you suggested this, he obliged very much, and he gave me a pension also. And so when Lord Chaitanya heard that King Prataparudra had served his, of course he already knew, but nevertheless, he served his great, very confidential devotee Ramananda Roy. At that time he said, all right, because he has served you, my dear devotee, then he can have my darshan. So this is a very wonderful story of how by serving a devotee, Lord Chaitanya refused, but when he saw that this one served my devotee, then he became inclined. So very wonderful leela and very instructive leela. So this is Prabhupada emphasizing on this, that the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee. This generally means, and Prabhupada explains it here and in other places, this means rendering service to the pure devotee. I am in the core of their hearts, and they are in the core of my heart. Now, very interestingly, and there's many nice statements here. Lord Krishna, when he was talking to Dabasa Muni, he said, without saintly persons for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the cause of their heart. What to speak of my devotee, even those who are devotees of my devotee, are very dear to me. So Prabhupada, in these purports here, explains that one has to be very careful, first of all, to actually come to the level, the topmost perfectional level. One can only do so by the mercy of the pure devotee. The devotee, Krishna has manifest within the core of his heart, and by his mercy can that loving exchange, can that feeling of love be given to the devotee who is aspiring to advance in devotional service. That's one thing. And another thing here, Prabhupada explains, and Krishna explains, that one has to be very careful dealing with very, very advanced devotees. Because Krishna told Dabasa Muni, when someone offends them, it is like they're offending me directly. Because I'm sitting in the core of their heart, they are sitting in the core of my heart. And when someone offends them, I am offended. So therefore, I cannot give my mercy to such a person. So one has to be very, very careful. And Prabhupada goes on to describe about offences and so on and so forth. So it can be a double-edged sword. One has to be very careful around very advanced devotees not to commit offences. But if one learns very nicely how to serve the great devotees, how to take their associate and serve them, then one can make very, very rapid advancement. Very, very rapid advancement. A pure devotee, here it says, where is it? Lord Krishna is the property of his pure unconditioned devotee, and as such only the devotees can deliver Krishna to another devotee. Krishna is never obtainable directly. Not obtainable name bhakta jana bhakta yeme bhakta mad bhakta tamamata. As I quoted this one, yeme bhakta jana. One who says he is my devotee, he is not my devotee. But one who says he is a devotee of my devotee, that one is my devotee. So you can't, and Krishna goes on to tell Devasa Muni that you certainly have wonderful qualities like tapasya and jnana, austerity and knowledge, but unless one gets the mercy of the pure devotee, then these qualities are useless. And Prabhupada gives the example. He said, just like a snake can be have a very wonderful jewel in its head, and very dazzling effulgent. So it's a wonderful jewel, but it's on the hood of the snake. So generally one will steer clear of it. This is a total fool. Right? If there's a deadly snake with a valuable jewel on the hood, oh, look at that jewel, I'm very attracted, but I can't go near it because it's on the head of it, on the hood of the snake. So one can be adorned with tapasya, knowledge, all sorts of good qualities, but if they are offend devotees, they've got, then that overshadows all the good qualities. It can ruin the good qualities. It ruins it. And Prabhupada gives the example, of course, we've heard many times, of the mad elephant offence. You can painstakingly grow a garden and have it all nice, but in an instant, if an elephant comes into your garden, that's it. It's over in about 1 second. Right? In 1 second. All your work can be over in 1 second. Now we should think about that very carefully, because we're practicing devotional service, but then if we just, for one reason or another, if we start going around offending devotees, Krishna is not at all happy, and then all your painstaking work can be flattened right off. Now you don't lose as far as your engagement in devotion, but the purity level will have to, first of all, now of course Krishna told Devasa Muni, you have to go and pay your obeisances to my devotee Ambarish Maharaj. He didn't say directly, all right, I forgive you. No, you go and seek forgiveness from him. So first of all, one has to deal with that. Then one has to practice again very nicely, developing devotional service in a good consciousness, and be very, very careful, and especially at very, very advanced devotees. One should give respect to all, even if the ant, as mentioned in the previous verse, even the ant. But there are different levels of respect also. So a very, very advanced devotee, one may see differently, one may agree or disagree, but one has to be very careful how one deals with such personalities, because they are very dear to Krishna. Just like Srimati Radharani, she is very dear to Krishna. Here the Prabhupada gives it. In Vrindavan, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani. She is very tender-hearted. Tender-hearted. If someone if someone does something, she is very happy. And if she recommends, the mercy of Radharani is available very readily to sincere devotees. Now, if one's a sincere devotee, then one will take all steps to avoid creating all sorts of disastrous situations. And of course, we're not pure, and we'll create these situations and commit offences, but then one has to take the appropriate action as far as that's concerned. Now, once Radharani recommends a devotee to Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. So it's a question of coming into the intimate association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you come, everyone has to be very nice. There's a nice consciousness, a very high level of consciousness. Krishna doesn't allow someone with impure to come in there to spoil that whole situation. Krishna keeps them at a distance. And generally we see that, someone committing offences, if it continues, after some time, Krishna will separate them from the association of devotees. Of course, that person may be thinking, I have taken the decision to leave the association of devotees. But actually, if that one has committed offences and so on and so forth, Krishna has taken him out. So to come back in, one needs to again pray and seek the mercy of that particular Vaishnava, or those Vaishnavas he offends, or he is offended. So the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is essential. Service to the pure devotee is very essential. Only then, Gopi Bhatta Kamalaya Dasa Dasa. I am not a sannyasi, I am not a brahman, I am not a sudra, I am not a man, this is Lord Chaitanya. I am just the servant of the servant of the servant of those who serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the most obedient servant of the servants of the Lord, who maintains the Gopi damsels of Vrindavan. This is Lord Chaitanya's prayer. I'll read this verse again if anyone has any question. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body, and the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Any questions? Comments?
In Canto 5 it says the ghosts are superior when the gradations of different entities are described, trees and animals and humans. And they say ghosts are superior to humans. And yet they cause so much disturbance. How are they categorised as being superior?
Well, as far as, on the material subtle level, they've got powers that the humans just... I think Prabhupada actually gives the example, just like a ghost can travel very quickly. There's a subtle... human can travel at a certain speed and go one place to the other. But ghosts, being on that ethereal, if you just go like whoop, whoop, and quick, so that's a power over and above the humans. So on that level, they're considered high.
And just while I have the microphone, Maharaj, that last comment of yours that Lord Chaitanya ultimately is not even Lord Chaitanya said, he's the servant, but he remains, isn't it, Lord Chaitanya? I mean, they say there's a Lord Chaitanya's movement in the spiritual world similar to Radha and Krishna, Leela. So I'm just questioning. You say he's not even Lord Chaitanya, he's a servant, but Lord Chaitanya never loses that status.
I never said he's not Lord Chaitanya, but...
I must have missed how you said that. I thought you were taking away sort of like, his designation or something.
Well, that's the way he saw it. He didn't see himself with it. I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not a brahman, I'm not a sudra, so on and so forth. So he didn't see himself as any designation of the material world, but his designation was servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay, thank you.
There's one final question.
There was a time where his devotees were addressing him as the Lord, and he was covering his ears.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's many instances. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's many instances like that, And when someone would say, "You are the Krishna, you are the Supreme," "Oh, Vishnu, why are you talking like that?" He didn't like to hear it. So because he was playing the part of the devotee, and even the designations, as I said to Bharamaka and that. So this is the mood of Lord Chaitanya and his followers. This is the mood, the servant of the servant, and the servant of the gopis. Especially the Madhurya Rasa, the followers in the line of Lord Chaitanya are in that mood of Madhurya Rasa, although it's the highest. Still, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, one can be elevated to the topmost position. But one needs to be in that same mood as Lord Chaitanya, follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas, of the great pure devotees, and take the dust from their lotus feet and place it on their heads in a very humble mood. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.